Hello everyone, I'm Steve Venner, G0TAN, and I'd like to welcome you to another informative video produced by Martin Lynch & Sons. Today I'm going to introduce to you Icom's new IC-7610. It's been a while coming, but it's been well worth the wait. Okay, this particular video, you'll be pleased to know it's not too technical. Okay, so we're not going to go into all, the performance figures and things like that. I'm just going to go over some of the functionality, how easy it is to use, with a touchscreen and things like that. If you want the technical specifications, you can always go to Icom's website, download the Icom 7610 brochure. So it's a copy of it here. If you're in the area, always pop into the store, have a cup of tea, pick up one of the brochures for free, even have a play with the radio. We have one on demo. So that's good. If you really want to know how well it performs, then you can always go to Rob Sherwood's website. It's very good. He produces a lot of technical tests. It does a lot of technical tests and things like that. You can see how well this particular radio performs against other radios in the field. Alternatively, if you get the latest, which is April's edition of Practical Wireless, there is on there a really good, excellent review of this, and it also includes Rob Sherwood's data, so you can make your mind up. So there we go. So with that, I'm going to sort of introduce you to a few features now of the radio. Okay, so here's the front panel of the radio. Hopefully you can see it okay. Just a very quick overview of what's on there. It's typical of any Icom receiver, in fact any transceiver for that matter. It's going to have a good lot of function, lots of buttons and stuff like that. So start off with the power button at the top with the blue LED. We have our little transmit or MOC switch if you want to do a manual operation there. We have a timer button here. If you press and hold that, you can set up various timers for the radio to switch off or to tune to certain bands and things like that specifically for you. We have our tuner button. It's got an inbuilt ATU which can match up to 3-to-1 SWR. Does have emergency mode like its younger brother, the 7300. So here we have the phone socket and the electronic key. It's got the electronic key, so if you've got a paddle or something like that, that is where you would plug it into. Again, this is a dual receiver. So you can see on the screen here, the main receiver sub is on the right hand side. So at the top you have the volume control, the smaller inner knob. There we go, we can hear that. The outer knob is again the Icom RF gain stroke squelch control. And one other feature on these knobs is quite good fun. It's quite useful. If you want to ever mute the audio, you've got it set just where you want it. You can just press it on the end, and it mutes the audio. Press it again, and it comes back. Okay. Below that, the main receiver volume control, you have a noise blanker button, noise reduction button. So you can hear how the noise just goes away when I press that. 2 USB sockets for maybe keyboard, mouse, something like that, or if you're updating the firmware. Yeah, the lower control is for the sub receiver. Again, there's nothing coming out of that at the moment. If I turn that down, there's nothing there. RF gain and squelch don't do anything because we haven't enabled, at the moment, we haven't enabled the sub receiver. Lower right hand side, we have the normal 8-pin microphone socket. Just below the sub receiver volume control is the SD card socket, just like on the 7300. Again, that's what you can use to save your settings or update the firmware. Then along the bottom of the display we have the menu. If you want to go into the menu, various options on here which we'll be going into later. The mini scope button, if you want to do that, can exit that. Oh sorry, I have to go back into that. So we see that. If you want to memory write, memory read, the auto tune if you're into CW mode, then there's some quick options there to set up, so you can do VFO memory, meter select, we could do that, we can change from power output to SWR and so on. We can see that. Then you have the ability to record either your own voice if you want to say something, or you can record the audio from one of your receivers, and then you can play it back later, and so on. Over on the right hand side we have the multifunction knob here at the top, again like the 7300. You can do that, press that, and you can change power output, the digital select, just by touching it. There we go, you can change the power. Not going to go into too much of that now because we'll be doing that in the later part of the video. So that changes depending on what mode you're in as to what functions are available in there. Okay, so we can get rid of that. Just to the right of that you have the generic band buttons, so you can change the bands. That's one way of doing it, or of course you can do the touchscreen. Below the multifunction knob you have the ability to go into split mode, dual watch mode. If you're in split mode you can monitor the transmit frequency. There's a little illumination there to tell you whether you're on main side or sub. We can change that over. As you can see on the display it changes. You can swap frequencies by using the change button if they're on different sides. Then you have the main VFO or sub VFO, depending which one you're doing. At the moment it is on the main. We change it over there. Now we've got the sub, so it's easy. Right. Just below the VFO on the right hand side you have the speech button. If I turn the volume up and press speech, it's difficult to hear because I've got so much noise on there at the moment, so I'll try playing with that later. Okay, on the right hand side we have twin pass band tuning again, as on other Icom radios. On this one, if you're in CW mode, you have the keyer speed and the pitch. This is slightly different to the 7300, whereas they're actually on the multifunction control there. You have the filter setting button just below the twin pass band. You can press and hold that, and you can play about with the filter frequencies and bandwidths and things like that. Audio peak filters, twin pass band peak filters. What else do we have here? Below the key speed and pitch, we can just about see it here. You have RIT, Delta TX and the clear button, and you can play about with the, if I switch the RIT on, you can see it coming up on the display over here. And so that's about it for the front panel controls. I'm now going to turn the radio round, and we'll have a look at some of the options, some of the connectors that's on the back panel. Right, so this is the rear panel. What we have here is obviously the power socket here. If you want to use an external ATU, here's how you can connect to that. On the lower left hand side here we have the optional RX antenna inputs, or input and output. On the lower left you can actually have the option of an external 10 meg reference. If you've got something like a GPS controlled rubidium crystal, if you run your shack off of a 10 meg reference, that's where you can put that in there. And the other one is if you're running a transverter to go up on, say, 2 meters or sort of frequency like that, you've got a transverter output here. So cooling fan, no problems there. Grounding lug, that's easy. We have 2 antenna ports on here. This was something that we had a few comments about on the 7300, why have they only got 1 antenna port, but that was basically, it's a really good beginner's radio, fully featured. The cost involved in fitting an extra antenna port and all the circuitry and so on would have potentially put the cost beyond the beginner sector, if you like. So what else have we got here? ALC and send, these are just 2 phono sockets on here to control linear amplifiers. You have 2 accessory sockets on here, again for controlling linear and other accessories on here. Straight key port, external keypad, here you have an external meter, and the remote stroke CIV port connector. Here we have a LAN. You can actually have this connected up straight to your home network, and using the appropriate software you can control this rig remotely. So that's pretty good going. We have an external display connector on here. This is something, again, was a comment that was mentioned about the 7300, why didn't they put one of those on, but you know, again, it's a smaller radio, lower cost, something like that. Okay, so here we have the LAN port, so you can connect this to your home network, and using appropriate software you can actually control the rig remotely. Here we have an external display socket, a display port. This was something that, again, a few comments made about 7300. Why didn't it have one? Well, they decided on a smaller, lower cost radio it wasn't viable to put one of those on. So, but we have one now on the 7610, and I'll give you a quick demo of that later on. Then we have two USB ports for various audio and other data mode activities that you want to do. And finally we have two speaker ports, left side and right side, sub and main. So there you go. So that's it for the rear panel connectors. Nothing too exciting. So I'm now going to turn it round, and I'm just going to show you with the main display, and then we go into the functionality. Okay, so I've turned the radio round again, and I've now connected my external 24-inch monitor. I've been reliably informed by the guys at Icom that if you connect an external monitor to this, which has touchscreen capability, it works in conjunction with the touchscreen on the front of the radio. So without further ado, I'm going to now show you some of the features and functionality with that touchscreen. Okay, so here we're back on the main display of the radio. It's switched on at the moment, and what I would recommend when you get a new radio, regardless of the manufacturer or whatever, is always do a full factory reset first. What we're going to do here, we can do it again very similar to the 7300s. We can go menu, set, others, we've got a reset button, all reset, next, and yes. Okay, and there we go. We can see the latest version of software up there. Talking of latest version of software, again, it's one of those things that I would recommend. Go to Icom's website, or if you haven't got the latest, it's very easy to update on this. If basically you just load it to an SD card or via a USB cable. SD card plugs into just underneath in this little socket underneath here. You go through the menu items just like I did here, and just do update firmware. On this, it takes probably getting on for about 2 or 3 minutes. On 7300 it was a lot quicker, about 30 seconds. Okay, so done that. This has got the latest firmware. This is how it starts up when you first switch the radio on, if it's been reset. And so I've been around the other controls with you already. We're going to probably go through a few more of those at some point in time. But let's have a look at what we've got on the display. On the left hand side we have some soft touch buttons. The first one at the top determines whether you're going onto a antenna 1 or antenna 2. Okay, there's nothing connected to antenna 2 at the moment, we just have antenna 1, so we just switch it back to there. Again, we have the next button down is our preamp. It's by default preamp 1. Just touch it, preamp 2, or you can turn the preamp off totally. Okay, so leave it on preamp 1. Then again, you've got the attenuator. Okay, RF attenuator. You've got off, or 6 dBs, or 12 dBs, or 18 dBs, and we want it switched off. Then if you're on the lower frequency bands, sometimes, depending on the time of day, things like that, depending on your background noise level, you can reduce that by sticking the IP plus on here. It's IPO on some of the Yaesu rigs and things like that. So you switch that on. It just reduces the background noise a little. Okay, and then of course you have the AGC. Currently it's set to slow. Sorry, it is now set to slow, fast or medium by default. Vox, if you want to use Vox, you can just touch that to turn it on, switch it off as you want. And same with compression. Currently it's off and set to wide. If you do that, it's on wide. If you press and hold it, you can set whether it's wide, mid or narrow. Okay, so we'll leave it on wide for now. Okay, so switch that off. So just return. Okay, so that's the basic setup, as I say, when you first switch the radio on. Now, one of the beautiful features about this radio is, obviously, like the 7300, is the waterfall and spectrum scope. And to enable that, we go into the menu system. The menu options that you get here depend, or they change slightly depending on which mode you're operating in. So we're in SSB mode. This is what you will get. So we want the spectrum scope, so we just touch that and away you go. So we do have an antenna connected to this at the moment, but really the bands are pretty dead. Okay, so what other things do we have on here that you can see while we're talking about this? At the top of the display we can see which antenna we've selected. We have two meters here. Left hand one is the main, right hand one is sub. Okay, the main is the one that's highlighted at the moment. We're only using a single receiver. Okay, so we've got that on antenna 1. If I press 2, it comes up, the noise drops off, no antenna connected. So go back to antenna 1, here we go. You can see your bandwidth. We're currently set to 2.4 kilohertz by default. If I press the filter, we can go down to 1.8 kilohertz, or we can go all the way up to 3 kilohertz. Now you can change, they're the default settings. If you press and hold the filter button, you'll see each of the filters that you can select. Down here you can change the bandwidth. If I touch that, we can go up to 3.6 kilohertz max on that. You can set the default, press and hold, that goes back down to 3 kilohertz. You can also set the shape, whether you want a sharp filter or whether you want soft. If you press and hold the filter shape, you can get a whole bunch of more options to play about with. For each mode, whether it's CW, SSB and so on, SSB digital, the whole lot. So a whole bunch of stuff going on there. So that's shape set. I've got it set now back to default. So let's get rid of that. We can exit out of that, go back to our spectrum display. So we're currently set a bandwidth to 3 kilohertz, and we're on soft. So you can change the filter settings quite easily. We have a little clock here. It's currently set to 12:43, which is pretty close. That's UTC, that's GMT or Zulu time, whatever you want. You can have your own local time here and have the time set to UTC if you want it. Underneath this one, we have the meter setting. The meter is currently set to power output. We have the generic S meter going up and down as receive signal strength, but if I was to transmit power, if I was to speak into a microphone, you would see the output go up and down accordingly. We have the same set of functionality on this meter or on this meter as we do on both. It's when we select the sub receiver, you'll see it in a minute when we put dual watch on or something like that. You'll see that you can change these independently. So we also, if you want to change the meter setting, I say meter's currently set to power output. If you touch the meter, now we can monitor the SWR. Touch it again, we have ALC. Touch it again, we have compression, drain voltage of the FETs and drain current of the FETs as well. So you can monitor all that, and then back to power output. There's a little TX indicator illuminated here. If I was to transmit, we can see it illuminate. Okay. Unless if you go out of band, it's again like the 7300, it goes into a dotted outline to say that you can't transmit. And then we have here your mode of operation. So you can touch the mode, and then you have the SSB, CW, RTTY, PSK, AM, FM and data modes. Okay, you can select those as you so desire. Changing the frequency can be done in two ways. One is just touch the screen and you get a little numeric band keypad come up. You notice we don't have again 5 megs on here. You would have to touch the 5 point, let's say 25 and enter, and then we can go to 5 meg band. That's a way of doing that. Okay. Right, so let's go back to, the other way of doing it is to go over to the keypad over here, and let's go back to, say, 7 megs or 14 megs where we were. So there we go. So we can do it 2 ways. What else have we got on here? Let's see. We've done most of the keys. Now we're going to go, if we go into dual watch, we should now see the second receiver come into play. And as I said earlier, you can have the same functionality, change the antennas, change the filter types, whether it's soft and so on, exactly the same. One thing I'd like to demonstrate to you, which is I really like when you're in this sort of dual watch mode, if I push the dual band, you get both the main and sub receivers being shown here. You could have the sub receiver on a different band, and you can have both at once, receiving both at once. What I like is if we go to this one here, we're currently in center mode. So as you tune, so it's on the top one, as you tune around, you can see the whole of the frequency spectrum changing. You can do the same on here. If I swap over to that, now we're seeing the bottom. If I put that into fixed mode, okay, so now we've got a fixed band spread, and we can go from, on 20 meters, we're going from 14 megs all the way up to 14.35. If I go into the top one, that's still on center mode. But one thing that you can do is if I press the menu and do this tracking button here, okay, we do tracking on, and then we go back. We get a little blue light saying flashing, we're tracking. Both main and sub now are following each other. The bottom one has the cursor like a normal full width display, frequency display. But as you go up into, say if we go up here, you can see a more magnified version as it goes across. That's something that I wish they could implement on the 7300. That would be really neat. So, but unfortunately bands are a bit dead at the moment. So, okay, so that's sort of tracking mode. Again, you can, there's various things on here. On the tracking mode here, sorry, the close-in bit, if you change the frequency span, you can get it from 25 kilohertz, 100 kilohertz, 250 kilohertz, 500 kilohertz, and so on, back to 2.5. So you can get very close in. Oh, we have somebody. Right. Okay, don't know what happened to him. He's gone. Never mind. Right. So let's go back to a normal display. So we've got a single display, and that's on. Let's go back up to normal 25 kilohertz. I think it is. A shame about that noise there, but we're still in tracking mode, so I'm going to turn that off for now. So switch him off quite easily. Right. So let's go back to the main display. What else? Take it out of dual watch. You will notice on dual watch the other volume controllers now come in, so we can turn the RF gain down on both of them if you want, and you'll see the RF gain indicated, just to remind you that you've got the RF gain turned down. Usually you just turn it up until the RF gain disappears. If you turn it up too much, what happens there? Nothing. You just basically, oh, I haven't got it, sorry. It goes into squelch mode. So right. So you can tell that by the little yellow lights here. Okay. Again, if I turn that down, turn that one up, we've got now both. If you had headphones in here, you've got stereo reception, so one for the left, one for the right, one for main, one for sub. And again, you can mute either just by pressing the button. Okay, so where to from here? We've still got it in dual watch mode at the moment. I've got just one station, I believe. No, oh, there he is. Okay, so we have some station on there. What have we got over here? So let's just tune off of him a little bit. Just go back to, rather than the functionality on the display, let's go to find a quiet bit. To operate the tuner on this, as I mentioned earlier, it's got an internal tuner which is a will operate up to about 3:1 SWR. So to turn it on, you just press it once. That's now enabled the tuner. However, it's got it in its memory as whatever the previous setting was. So if you're tuning to a different band, different frequency, or different frequency in the same band, it's always good practice just to give the tuner a quick long press. There we go. Now we're tuned. Okay, and that's now got that set, so we can actually transmit if we wanted to on that. We go back to 1.8 megs. Okay, so from there, what we can do is, you can hear the signal is actually quite noisy. So below that we have the noise reduction button. There's noise blanker on to the left, noise reduction on the right. Noise blankers used for pulse noise, such as like lightning strikes, crashes, ignition noise from motor vehicles, that sort of thing. No point in putting that on in this situation that we have here. But what we can do is put the noise reduction on. If you have a listen, see how good the noise reduction is on here. If we just touch it once, it drops that noise right down. Okay, so that, used in conjunction with the filtering, can get really to pull out those weak signals and things like that. So if you want to change the level of the noise reduction, just press and hold it and you get it up here, and you can change it so you can really reduce that noise. The problem with having too much noise reduction on, this isn't specific to Icom. Any noise reduction, if you turn the noise reduction on the level too high, you can get sort of these funny artifacts, and sometimes if you've got headphones on, it can sound a little bit strange. So I think the default setting of 4 in this case is just right. So we can get rid of that. There we go. Right, so what else have we got on here? I'm going to turn the dual watch off for a second. Okay, so get rid of that. So we're just using the single receiver now. Still got the noise reduction on. What you've got along the bottom of the display here, we've got this into our, it is in center mode on the main receiver. Okay, so we can see the whole of the frequency scanning, moving up and down. We'll do when he starts talking again. And you can have a couple of things here. We've got menu 1. Touch that, we go to menu 2. You can play about with some things on here. Go back to menu 1. You can change the span. At the moment we've got it on 25 plus or minus 25 kilohertz. You can go plus or minus 50 kilohertz, get some more stations in. Go up to, as I demonstrated earlier, you can go up to about plus or minus 500 kilohertz. 1 meg bandwidth. That's pretty good going. You see all the. Okay, so get that on. So 500, see loads and loads and loads of stations, or noise. So go back down to, let's see, that's good. So plus or minus 25 kilohertz. You can also do a hold on here, and that actually stops the frequency spanning, but you can still tune around if you want to, but it doesn't, it just stops the scanning. Okay, take the hold off. Center fixed, I've already demonstrated that. We're in center mode at the moment. If I go into fixed mode, you've got the full 20 meter band here. So it's 14 megs, 14.35 in the UK. Okay, you can change that. If you change the edges, you got, again, very similar to the, in fact the same as the 7300. You can have the whole band, you can have just the CW portion, or you can have just the voice portion. And you can change those settings by pressing and let's go back. So if I go to here and press and hold that, we can go down to the fixed edges, and you say if we're on the 14 meg band, we do that, we can see where the frequencies are, and you can change those. Each one can be up to about a meg wide, but that's entirely up to you the way you do that. If you ever have the radio widebanded, the fixed edges will you have to go and set them up. So same as the band edge beeps and things like that. So let's come back out of that for now. So just going to fix. I've already demonstrated the dual watch. If you want the dual watch feature. You can have 14 megs there, 7 megs on the other side if you want. Let's just do that again quickly so you can see. So 14 megs over here, switch on dual watch, we've now got 14 here. If I go into the sub frequency and I change the band to 7 megs, so 14 up there, 7 megs over on the right hand side. Okay, so quite easy to do. So come back out of dual watch, take that off. We're on the wrong one. Go back over to sub. Let's get rid of that. Oh, there we go. Sorry, finger trouble. Lots of things to play with on this radio. So that's the bottom buttons on menu 1. Let's have menu 2. Here we've got the reference, which is the background reference level. So if I touch that, you can then change the main VFO. You'll see that the actual noise, the grass gets bigger. You go plus and minus 10 dBs. Oh, actually goes even lower. So you can get it right down. So you can really see those little spiky signals there. So go back to default, press and hold, bump 0 dB. Okay, so go back here. The speed is the speed at which the scan is happening. We're on medium now. We can press it once more and we get slow scan rate. I just leave it in fast. It's just very nice. Receive bandwidth is narrow, so you can see very, very, very spiky, very fine. Then you've got wide, and you can see the shape of the actual signals coming in. I don't know whether that's explained it particularly well. So mid, back up to narrow. Depends on how you like your video, how you like it seen. Okay, and then you've got the video bandwidth itself. You can do wide, and you can see there's not so much grass. You go to narrow, which is where it normally is, and we do that back to mid. I think that's where it is. You put markers on here if you want. These are the tuning markers. You can see M is for main, and if I went over to sub, we wouldn't see that because we're on a different band. We'd actually have to change bands. Okay, so M for main. Oh, shush. Okay. And one other thing you can do here is you can expand this spectrum display. If you just touch that, you see up here everything disappears. You don't have the analog style meters anymore. You've got a bar graph meter for the signal strength and power output, etc. But you've got a much bigger waterfall. And then what you can do, if you press and hold that, as I showed you earlier, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that you can set here. You can change the colours to suit yourself of the waterfall, and so on. Marker position, centre type of display. So, okay, right. So that's that for now. So what we're going to do now is just go quickly over some of the, when I go to the actual main menu, if we go here, some of these functions here. So here we are again. We've now got the spectrum display back up, and we're going to go through some of the menu items from the main menu. So we touch menu, and we can see here, this I said earlier, the items that you get in here depend on what mode you're in. At the moment we're in SSB mode, okay, and we got the band scope on. That's brilliant. We've had that for a little while. Another thing we can do is the audio. We can actually look at the audio, so you can see the received audio here. This is up to 3 kilohertz wide, or 3 and a little bit depending on how you set it, and this is your the actual like a real-time scope if you want. What you can do here is change the level so you can actually see the audio. So this is like a frequency display of the audio, and this is like a scope. Okay, and you can change the play about with it, just like a little oscilloscope, and monitor your audio. Okay, you can hold it, freeze it, whatever you want. So that's that one. Voice. Now on here, you can record voice messages. Again, you can record and set them here. You can check the TX level. If you're doing contesting, things like that, you can record, hello CQ, or CQ contest, and give you call sign. Pretty much most radios these days will have something along these lines, but it's so easy to use on this radio. You just go into TX and you hit your record. Okay, you need, as you saw then, you do need an SD card stored in here to record your voice. There's no internal storage on here for that. Okay, so that's once we come out of that menu. If you want to display all the meters, I said earlier on, you can just touch the meter. Let me go back to a normal display for a second. Let's go back to scope display. So you got this. If you wanted to say the signal strength we've got at the moment, but when we transmit, we see the power output. We can touch that. We can now monitor the SWR and so on. We go all the way back round. It's just one at a time. If you go into that menu, the meter menu, exactly the same as the 7300, you can now have multiple meters all there together. You still got the pseudo analog meter here. You have the signal strength here, you've got power output, the ALC, compression, and SWR and drain voltage over here. You also get, sorry, drain current, not voltage. You get the drain voltage over here with the PAs and the PA temperature as well. So you can leave it in that mode if you're just tuning around, you're not worried about the spectrum display. So, what else we got? Memories. There's no memories programmed in here at the moment. That is subject to another video. I don't have time to demonstrate that at this moment in time, so I will do another one, show you how easy it is to do. It's basically so we're trying to give you a taster of the functionality of the radio. Let's see what else we got here. Scan. So you can say down here, you can start, if you're actually going into scan mode, if you're not worried about, again, the frequency spectrum display, you can set up the various delta frequencies, how fast you want it to, how you want it to sweep, and so on. So we get rid of that, go back into here. There's a memo pad here for some quick memories if you want. There's only about 10 of them, I think. Oh, we haven't got any program. It looks like there's only 5. So what else we got? Again, you can record, you can play files, instant replay. There's all sorts of stuff you can get in here. And antennas. Now this is quite an interesting one, because what you can do is for each band you have 2 antenna ports on the back, so you can actually program as you change bands. You say if you're going from 1.8, sorry, let's look at the first entry there. You got from 30 kilohertz up to 1.6 megs. You could have that as a receive antenna for your AM broadcasts. 1.5 to 2, so that could be your, sorry, 1.6 to 2. That could be your top band antenna. So you might have that, and then the rest of them you could put on antenna port 2, and you can then select it. It'd be automatically selecting the antenna port. You don't have to keep playing about changing antennas by that switch. So let's get rid of that. I'm not going to do DigiSelect at the moment. That's a topic for another video. Notch is your notch filtering. If you've got a tone, say, you can switch it on. Monitor you can switch on, and tracking I've already showed you with the two displays there. The automatic notch, you can do a manual notch as well, or you can switch the notch off. What that does, if I show you, let's go back to a frequency display and we find a tone, say. Right, if I do that, and if I find the automatic notch setting, okay, if I can, let's find another one, see if I can get it a bit better. That's a bit, that one should do. We go into menu and we put notch on. It should now notch that out for us as we do that. So you don't have to worry about doing that. If it's not quite the way you want it, what you can do is go into manual notch mode. Right, and then you can press and hold it, and there comes the manual notch. So, and you can change, we can manually notch that frequency out, as you can hear there. Turn it off, and we've got the noise back again. It's good if you've got trying to listen to a signal or a station, and you've got some sort of birdie or heterodyne or whatever, some sort of nasty tone right next to you. You can just tweak it out like that, so makes much better reception for you. Okay, so there we go. An automatic notch does the same thing if you want it. Okay, so that's pretty much the menus that we have there. What I will do very quickly is go into the settings menu, because there is a whole bunch of stuff in here that you can play about with and configure. Most of the stuff that you need to do on a regular basis is easy to access from here, but stuff that you might only want to set up once, you can go into the set mode. Right. So let's start. Okay, so where I left off just a second ago, sorry, I had to have a drink, my throat's getting a bit claggy. I've been through most of these controls from the menu. One that I was going to show you next was this set. So if we press this, this is where you can basically configure the radio. As I said earlier, it's a lot of stuff in here is stuff that you probably don't want to touch on a regular basis. You sort of set it and forget it. A whole bunch of stuff in here. So for instance, the tone control, you can set up your individual tones for your SSB, AM, FM, CW, RTTY, PSK, things like that. You can set the high pass filters, the bass, the treble, and so on. So each one of these is configurable in a similar sort of way. Okay, so let's get rid of that. And same for the TX side, SSB, AM and FM. So it tells you the transmit bandwidth. You can set those if you want. So if we want to do wide, at the moment we've got wide from 100 to 290. We can go, it looks like you can only go up to 2.9 maximum transmit bandwidth. Okay, so that's the TX ones. Functions. Oh, here you go. How long have you got? Are you sitting comfortably? So right. So you can set your beep levels, beep level limits, beep confirmations, band edge beeps. You can switch that on as default. And I believe, if you remember, I did a video on the 7300. You can actually do user band edge beeps. Again, this is something that you probably have to do if you have the radio widebanded. And if you set that to on, you then have to go through all of the band edges. So once it's widebanded, this list will actually be clear. So you have to go through and set those. Oops, let's go back into the functions. So user band edges, beep sounds on main, beep sound on sub. There is a whole bunch of stuff on here that it's I cannot show you everything in one video, unfortunately. You'd be there all day and you get totally bored. You're probably already bored now. So, but yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff to do with settings. Okay, as I said earlier, you can actually plug a USB mouse and a USB keyboard in here, and if you're sending RTTY, you can just type away at the keyboard. You don't have to use, there are programmable messages that you can send, but if you want to just type, you can connect it straight to that. And it's all the keyboard settings, what they actually do, and so on. Okay, so you can even do screen capture. There you go. So let's have a look at that. Connectors, again, this is to do with the audio, whether it comes out the USB socket, whether it comes out as an IF, or whether it's audio frequency. Again, it's a lot of stuff that you would let's think, a lot of stuff that you infrequently use. Okay. Yes, it's one of those things that when you get the radio, sit down, have a play with, see what you can find. So network is how you go setting your network parameters if you're doing remote operation. Again, there's a whole bunch of stuff there that I'm not going to get into in this video. The display is the one that we normally go into, you can set the display on the radio, again colours, brightnesses and things like that, but if you scroll down you've got one here as an external display. If you switch that, if you've got an external display connected, you need to go and turn that on. Okay, and in a minute my display has now just come up, and when you've done that you can go down and set the resolution. There's only two types that you get, 800 by 480, which is the widescreen, or if you've got a normal size monitor you can get the, whatever I said it was, 800 by 600, but for me I need that one because I've got widescreen. So you can set languages and so on, so a ton of stuff in there. Time set, we've already done the time set on this one, but that's where you would set it. You've got 2 clocks that you can do. SD card, you can load your settings, save settings. Now this, I always recommend, once you've got the radio set up as you would like it, just save your settings, because if you ever have to reset the radio for any reason, it's nice to be able to just recall the settings. It's so easy to do rather than going through and retyping in everything. So and that's also how you can do firmware updates. If you do that, again, there's no SD card found at the moment, that's right. So there you go, just turn that down a bit, annoying. So what else we got? Oh, and you can mount a sort of format and unmount the SD card. And pretty much the same with the USB flash drives that you can connect to here if you don't have keyboards. Pretty much the same thing. You can update the firmware via those. Same thing, pretty much the same thing. And others. There's a couple of things on here. Information tells you about the software version that you currently have in here. I updated this a few days ago because the 1.06 came out. Go back from there, touchscreen calibration, don't need to do that. Reset, I showed you how to do that earlier on. And then we have the emergency mode. If you remember on the 7300, they also have the emergency mode. And the idea is behind it is the internal tuner normally has this range of up to about, it'll try and match up to about 3:1. If it's not capable of doing that, if it's over 3:1 the SWR on your antenna, then it won't even attempt to tune. Well, this emergency mode will actually try and tune up to about a 10:1, so we've been told. But it will reduce the power down to about 50 watts in an attempt to protect the final transistors. It's not good practice to continue to use it in that mode unless you really have to. You know, so if it's a problem, you need to make a call, you need to make a contact, then do it, and then try and fix the antenna. Why is the SWR gone over 3:1? Okay, so if we wanted to do that, we can touch that. Yeah, power is reduced to 50 watts, and just a little warning on there. So I'll cancel that. I won't set it into that mode. So that's pretty much the functions I wanted to show you. I mean, there is a whole bunch of stuff in there, and it really needs just going through. You know, when you get one of these radios, go and get a cup of tea, cup of coffee, something like that, and just go and play with it and see what happens. So what other things we're going to do? What I'm going to do now is come back out of the menu system, so we go back into our normal mode. Then I'm just going to go through the four modes and show you the different types of things that you get up, and then I think that will be it. Okay, so what we've got here now, we've got it back into our normal mode. So we have 14.081. We're currently in USB mode, and as I said earlier, the multifunction knob in that mode gives you the power settings, your mic gain, DigiSelect, your notch if you wanted to use it. If you want to do manual notch, you can play about with the notch there, and your monitor function should you want to turn that on and off. Okay, so if I'm going to turn that off for now. Okay, so that's what you get in SSB mode, and so those things change depending on which mode you're in. And again, in the menu we've got the same items that we had before. Now if I go to let's say CW mode and just touch the mode button and touch CW, let's turn the volume up, see if I can hear anything. Can't hear anything there, but what we get now in the multi knob, we only get power, obviously no mic gain. We just have DigiSelect and the notch. That's in that menu. But in this menu, you now have an extra button. Pretty much everything else is the same, except for now you have the keyer. Again, you can have some pre-programmed menu keys. You can use this for contesting, where it can increment numbers and things like that. Memory 2, so if you're doing 599001, you hit that again, it'd be 599002, and so on. So you've got all the contest memories already set for you, and you can set those by pressing the Edit Set button on there. Okay, so we can exit out of that, go back into Kia. Done that one, sorry. Did I want to do that? Right. So, one thing on this which was different, I think I mentioned it earlier on. Let's go back into the scope. On the 7300, to change your pitch and speed, it comes into the multifunction knob. You've now got external knobs over here to control the keyer speed and the pitch. So you don't have to go hunting too far in the menu. Okay. So what else you got on here? You also have your braking, whether it's set to semi-braking or fully braking on there. Okay, so that's what you get on the CW part, Morse code part. Okay, and then if we go then to RTTY, let's try RTTY. Now there was a station around earlier on. I was hoping it'd still be there. Might be. Does that be him? I don't know. Oh, boring if he is. Not doing anything. Let's go up here. No. There was something around here. No. Anyway, if there was a station there, I was really hoping there would be, just so to easily demonstrate something to you. No good. Anyway, if you now go into, we're in RTTY mode now, if you go into menu system, right, you now have a decode button, you see. So if you want to decode your RTTY, you can see if we were to get that, the display changes, so you can get the RTTY, the audio frequencies here, the two tones, you can tune right into it. But we don't have one, no, we don't have anything set up there. There's a little tuning aid up here to help. But anyway, when you get a signal, RTTY signal, you'll see the actual text appearing here. Now if you have the keyboard, a regular keyboard programmed in, plugged into the USB socket, then and you have to have it configured in the menu system, you can just, there's some preset memories that you can program just to hit the button to send a response back, or you can just type away at the keyboard. So, okay, and there's loads of things that you can, again, you can expand it up here if you want to. And if you go to TX memories, now there's memories. You can edit these, they come standard with Icom call signs and stuff. So that's a good thing. And what I was going to say was, if I come out of there, go back into scope again, you will be able to do the same thing if you go to PSK. Right, so we do PSK, obviously the filter width changes accordingly, and then what you do is go to menu, and again you hit the decode button and you get a slightly different screen over here. Enough of the radio for now. Basically, I've sort of covered the things that I wanted to. There is a lot more features and functionality that I can't do in a, we'll say, a short video, but probably by the time this is edited, it will be still probably bore you to death. But anyway, the idea behind it was to sort of say, well, look, if you're thinking about getting an i-7610, you've read the reviews, you've read the specifications, you've seen some pictures and things like that. This video shows you what it, some of the features that it can do, and to a degree how easy it is to operate. That was the goal of this video. I've been playing with it for, well, probably about a day or so. There's still a lot of stuff on there that I need to get familiar with, but you know, if you are thinking about getting one, come on down to the store. We do have a demo and we do have stock. speak to one of the sales guys, and I'm sure they'll be able to help you. So if you have any questions at any time, or if you want one of the features explained, you know, how to program memories, how to do maybe repeater shifts if you're working on 10 meters, 30 megs, something like that. If you want to try and program the frequencies when you have to go into FM and set the CT CSS tones, just give me an email, or give one of the sales team an email, and I'll go and investigate it further for you and show you how to do it. But you know, if hopefully you've enjoyed the video, and let me know if I can be of any more help. But thank you for watching, and see you at the next video.